Thank you very much for taking some time to chat with me. Really do appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Your offices are fantastic. Notice coming in through the door, there's a real energy feel inside this building. So talk to me a little bit about the culture that's here and the individuals and how you make this a great place to work.
Sure. Well, I guess the first thing I want to say is a little tiny bit about this building. I came, the first time I lived in St. John's in 1986, I lived in the house across the street.
Okay.
And so it's a long way around to when we moved here last year. This building survived 2 great fires in St. John's.
Okay.
And so for all of us here, it has a lot of history and a lot of meaning. And one of the people who lived here was survived Beaumont Hamel. And so it has a really deep history and, you know, a set of values of resilience that are really important to Seafair. So it means a lot to us, this space. And so everybody here likes to work here and likes to come in this door and be on this very historic corner. So that's the first thing about 124 Military Road. And I'm glad that you felt the energy when you come in, because that's real. The group that works here really does share a set of core values that we talk about, and they're part of our culture.
I noticed them coming in through the door. Actually, it was one of the first things that I saw.
They're hung on a little clothesline there.
A little clothesline, and they're really neat. The entrepreneurship one really sort of struck as a, I guess, you know, when we're thinking about entrepreneurship in the province, that really struck me as a fantastic core value. Tell me how you came up with that and what the purpose of that was, or how that evolved.
Sure. So the whole process of defining core values, I mean, I think probably every company has a mission statement and vision and values, and they're posted in a strategic plan somewhere, and every 3 years someone dusts them off. But, you know, as I began to grow our group of companies, what became obvious to me was that the unifying thread in all of them was a set of core values. And people who shared them stayed, and people who didn't love that experience, or it didn't work out in some way or another. So we actually went through a series of roundtables with our employees to arrive at the core values of integrity, community, entrepreneurship, action, and fun. And everybody knows them and everybody talks about them, and we begin every meeting every week with a core value story, and somebody tells something that illustrates that core value living in the organization.
Right.
So it's a big part of who we are, and we use it kind of as our waypoints as we move forward.
So do you think that helps add to the success you have of your various businesses, and that here is having that common thread?
Well, you know, success is a relative term, and some of them are really challenged at the moment, but yeah, you know, I think it's, I'd have to say yes. I mean, when you look at what success means to us, it means doing well and living those core values, and we can find ways to to integrate that value of entrepreneurship into everything we do. Even work with government, for example, which is not by its nature particularly entrepreneurial, you know, but we find ways, and we're always looking for innovation, even in very sort of stable, unchanging, you know, industries like home care. So yeah, I think it does. I think it helps us do a better job.
And the economy is tough now. I mean, we know that with the last budget and things. If you were going to talk to some of the entrepreneurs in there, what would you tell them about in terms of toughing it out and how to ride out this storm?
Well, it's funny, you know, I do actually talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and something that, you know, I always get something back, young entrepreneurs, from that conversation as well, because they have an energy and a passion and, you know, such technological strengths, a lot of them. And I get a lot of calls from people saying, can I have an hour of your time? So much so that we've just started this internal initiative that we have an Entrepreneurs Day every 6 weeks or so. And we're getting our whole sort of senior leadership team engaged in those conversations. So we kind of funnel them all into, it's not the question you asked me, sorry,
but that's good.
But we've just started doing that because I think it's important to do that in the community. And so the message right now is, you know, one that has been true in my own life and certainly true in our businesses as well, that in crisis there's often opportunity. You know,
absolutely.
I believe that, and you know, when you know, things hit the fan,
right,
everybody stops and says, okay, well, we have to do something different. And so that is the opportunity for innovation. That is the opportunity for change. And I think that's the opportunity for entrepreneurs. So, watch carefully. Don't take, I don't want to say don't take risk, because risk is essential, but stupid risk is not good, right? But I think what makes an entrepreneur is when someone else sees something as too risky, the entrepreneur figures the way around the risk. And so,
So you would encourage someone to be what would you say to someone who said, I'm thinking about doing this in terms of being an entrepreneur as a business, or to young people, to say, because when you go through school and you go through they don't really talk about entrepreneurship as a career path, really. They look at traditional things. So what would you say to someone if they said to you, I'm thinking about doing this? Lessons learned.
Well, there are a lot. Okay, so I taught Business 1000 for a few years at MUN, and one of the things that struck me was that a lot of young people actually grew up, and maybe I did too to some degree, although I'm not that young anymore, but thinking that people in business were somehow not serving the community well, or not necessarily, always upstanding or something, and that's not true. And I think that, we need to cultivate a respect for business and a respect for entrepreneurship in our culture and in our education system and all those things. So to your point, yes, they don't talk about it, and we really should, because small business is the core of the Canadian economy. Here we are on Rollins Cross in St. John's, and that's the history of this part of this world.
Absolutely.
It was about small business, and the people who lived here came from another country to start something here. So this is an entrepreneur's corner. So I like to think that. Oh. And Newfoundland is an entrepreneurial city. St. John's is an entrepreneurial city. It was built on that. So, I think it's a really huge opportunity to do something different and good. And that's how I view entrepreneurship. And that I was at a workshop last week, and they said, profit is the result of a passion well executed. Oh. And I thought that was the most wonderful statement about entrepreneurship that I've heard. And so if you are a passionate person with an idea that you really want to do, not just, I think this would be a good way to make a lot of money. Right. That may be true too, but you'll often run out of steam. Before you'll see the payoff if that's your approach. So I think you have to find that passion, and if you do, I guess the other piece of advice is, we're all want to be so independent. Right. And I have suffered from this vanity as well, that you think you know how to do everything well, and and you probably can't afford to pay somebody whatever. You need to make sure you've got the best people doing the job that you can possibly afford, because that's the quickest way to grow and actually end up more stable more quickly. Right. So that would be a piece of advice. So people who don't do their books until every 6 months or something, that's not good. No, you don't. No, I agree. Right, I totally agree. Because you don't have the temperature of where you're to. Right. I mean, a lot of people that I see that are entrepreneurs are using their bank balance as an indicator of how they're doing, or how busy they are. Or how busy they are. Not at all related to how business is doing. Yeah, no, totally for sure. So I believe that there's still opportunity in the province. I know we're in a little bit of a difficult position. Yeah. I hope that you see opportunity in the province, and if you do, where do you see sort of that the types of opportunity? Would you tell someone, come and invest in our province is still a great place to do business and a land of opportunity? Well, yes. Good. Yes, I absolutely would. And there are certain things that make a lot of sense here. There's a lot of really smart young people who've done, arts and engineering and science, who can be really creative in developing new software ideas, for example. There's a nice little hub of that going on here. Yes, there is. It's not something I'm really closely connected to, but I'm really interested in. So there's a vibrant startup community here that's good, and there's a lot of people. I guess one of the things about Newfoundland that you don't really notice when you live here until you are somewhere else, just like our arts community, you don't notice how creative people are here. And it comes from being somewhat isolated, that you had to make do and figure stuff out and entertain yourself and all of those things. And so that creative drive and passion can be used in lots of industries, not just in, the performing arts, for example, but I think that speaks to our ability to be entrepreneurs as well, is that creativity. So figuring out how to harness that is an important aspect of business. I think one of the other areas where we really can do well is our tourism industry.
Yes.
Our high value tourism industry in particular. What we have, we don't always appreciate it, and we don't always even take care of it. And that's a shout out to the litter that is, oh my God, all around these days.
The springtime.
Oh my goodness. Really but so much of the world is now pretty standard houses and pretty standard communities, and what we have is truly beautiful and unique, and I think
absolutely
we need to figure that out a little bit more, and the province has done some great branding around that, and now it's about developing the product and extending the season and all those things. So those are industries that are always exciting and great places to start a business.
Agree. Totally.
And then you look at needs and wants and all that kind of thing. We have an aging population.
We do.
Hopefully that will help my business and some of the things that we're trying to do. But again, it's about ability to pay too. So that's there's a real tension there. So, but innovation and being able to drive some social change through innovation is something we talk about. So that whole idea of disruption is alive and well.
It is actually. It impacts every. And I mean, in terms of portfolio of businesses, you have a wide variety. I mean, you certainly have a lot in the realm of the personal care side. Mm-hmm. It all has a flavor, I think, when I look of it as care, because even Martin's Fire and Safety is care. So
we talk about looking after people.
Yes, so that would be sort of an underlying theme that I see.
For sure.
In terms of that, but that gives you multiple operations to be managing. So when you think about, once again, you're talking to other entrepreneurs, what are some of the advice that you would give in terms of being able to keep all those irons in the fire and still be, successful and be able to do that? Because that's a lot. That's a lot to be managing all at the one time.
Oh, it absolutely is, and I didn't start that way.
No.
So, but I guess the advice is that even when I was just doing the home support business, and it was very small, I had a desire to grow that business. And so what that means is that you can't keep doing things. You have to give them to other people. And so you got to let go of two things there. You got to develop trust and you got to let go of ego. And those things both have to happen. And there are times, I remember when I first hired a nurse, and I don't know that there were many other home care agencies that had nurses at that time, and I thought that we should get one. And in order to get one, the nurse needed an office and wanted an office, and we had no more offices. And I got out of my office. I said, okay, I don't need an office. I'll go out and work in the hall.
Right.
So I went out and worked in the hall for a year and gave the nurse the office. And the idea was that she could contribute more to the growth of the business by being in that office than if I stayed there and we didn't have a nurse. Right. So you got to kind of do what the business needs. And that was, in retrospect, a great decision.
Oh my goodness,
and I didn't love working in the hall. I wouldn't like to tell you that I did, but I did it because it was, at that time, the right thing to do. And so getting the right people, having a sort of a scaling up plan,
right?
Not just do more, but how do you do it better,
right? So
that your business can grow. And I think some of the things that I had to learn too that were probably a little painful lessons was stop doing things.
Okay.
There are paths you need to stop going down.
Right.
You need to make a different choice and say that's not working. And we pour our hearts and souls into things, so sometimes it doesn't work. You've got to be prepared to cut your losses. And I don't know that I was able to do that before I went back to school and did my MBA. But when they talk about that idea of sort of sunk cost,
right?
You got to unwrap your emotions from that. And I'm sure I've had this conversation with a few people before now, right?
It's hard.
That money is gone.
Yes.
Stop chasing it.
Like your baby.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
And
sometimes it is hard to do that. And the other thing which I find that I think is wrong is the taboo of failure. Because I think there's a lot of people that have done great things in the province, taken the risks, done things, it just hasn't worked out, and it's almost like a tar and feathering occurs for that. So I think in some regards that inhibits people from really, jumping in when they might have. How do you feel about that, or what's sort of your thoughts on that?
Well, we could do another whole interview on failure, and but you're right, people don't like to talk about that.
Right.
I figure I'm still sitting here, so on the whole, I haven't failed entirely.
Right.
But I have messed up some lot of things, Dorothy, and things, oh my God, if I had a do-over, but you don't. And, we've got some stuff happening now that isn't ideal. It's not how I wanted it to end, but, that's business.
Right.
And I don't know why we struggle with that. I mean, one of the things that we're all watching the U.S. in,
Yes.
disbelief, I think, at this point. But one of the things, I lived in the U.S. for a few years, and it was really impactful on me in how people viewed business owners. First of all, they cheered on their sort of energy to get it done.
Okay.
And, their desire to do a bit better, wanting more was, wanting more out of your life, or to have a higher income level or standard of living or a bigger business or whatever was celebrated there. So,
Yes.
Now I think it may have gone to the extreme in electing Donald Trump, but, that celebrating business is something I think we can learn from. And we're quick to take joy in the misfortune of others. Running a business is tough. And there are times when hard choices have to be made, and I think we haven't really absorbed as a culture the idea that, when business fails, there are things you can learn from it, and that just because it's closed or done, it isn't a total failure.
Right.
I think about in Placentia, where I'm from, there was a business that started in Argentia, and it ran for a few years, and it eventually closed. And people go around and say blah 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 blah.
Right.
But it did provide this many jobs for this many years, and things change in the economy, and that's the way the world is. And I think we should start exploring what you can learn from that,
Yes.
and 3M for how they do the innovation process, and for every sticky note there's probably 50 things that they threw money into and didn't work. But it's part of finding the next great discovery, right? So we encourage people here to make mistakes but to fail fast.
Right.
Don't keep yourself pinned to something that is not going to work. But that's a really interesting discussion that
Because I think we have to allow the economy is the way it is now, that unfortunately you will see some businesses whose balance sheet hasn't been strengthened enough to sort of ride out this tide.
Right.
And I think that from that we need to allow those individuals to still rise again.
Yeah.
And because, sometimes it's the circumstance that someone finds themselves in is not anything that they did wrong, but they sort of end up somewhere just because a couple of things didn't align rightly, or things of that nature. And we have to allow people to learn from that, and then those that are around them that are part of their team have all learned from that, right?
Absolutely. We're going through that right now. One of our businesses is not going to make it, and we invested in that business at the peak oil and the peak of the economy, and we just did, as you said, we don't have the balance sheet to withstand the incredible downturn that we've seen. And so I don't like that. And there's consequences to that for people, and there's huge financial consequences to our organization. But would I do it over? Yes, I probably would. Back in that day, back in that time. And will we all learn from that? Yes. And will we live to fight another day? Absolutely.
Right.
And make sure that people are looked after to the very best of our ability. And I can look people in the eye with that. And I think we as a business community, and our board of trade and all that, we need to wrap our arms around that whole
Absolutely.
concept of things ebb and flow.
They absolutely do.
And I'm sure in your professional career you see that all the time. It's just it's too bad.
It's the resilience piece that I
Right.
find,
Yeah.
for me is so fascinating to
Yeah.
see, because I'm fortunate
Yeah.
enough in business career that I have, and also through the Board of Trade
Right.
and the, moving up through to chair, you get to meet so many phenomenal entrepreneurs that are in the city, and that might be someone who is themselves with their own business that is just one, or it may be someone such as yourself that has several hundred people working for them. But you get to see the flavor of so much, the energy that comes from a conversation with someone who is truly an entrepreneur. And, you get to see them sometimes at their lowest point
Right.
when things are really, really tough. And then others at some of their highest points when they've got that success or they see that win or something has sort of worked out. So it's not, it's tough gig for
Yeah.
someone to be an entrepreneur for sure.
Absolutely. I know a few, and I've tried to make it a point to support some independent merchants on Water Street, because it's a tough go when
Absolutely.
the oil crowd moves out of downtown and stops spending money. It's tough, for the restaurant owners, and there's a few little day spas down there, and there's some different retailers down there, and I do try to spend my money, there. And they're incredibly hardworking and positive people who've poured their life, that's their story, right, is what they're doing there. And it's, working together we get through it better, and, telling those stories about the entrepreneurial passion and all.
Right.
I'm just always so moved when I leave. And it sounds really kind of hokey, but it's true, you go down and I was getting my nails done at one of the little day spas
Okay.
that's downtown, and clearly this woman had put everything she had, probably financially and emotionally and everything into this
Right.
business, and it was just beautiful. It was lovely. And she didn't want to talk about business. And I said, no, that's okay, you can ask me questions. So we had this great hour-long conversation
Right.
about being a woman, trying to find the balance between family and home, and
yes,
how
absolutely.
hard she couldn't pay for help right now because the business was a bit slow, so she was spending a lot of hours there, and
Right.
when does that end, and that whole conversation. And I think we both left that hour feeling a bit better,
Right.
because
So I think the conversation helps, right? I
Right.
think it absolutely does.
I think what you're doing right now helps, because I know when I have kind of struggled with what do I do next, or am I doing the right things, and particularly in the first years that I was in business, some of the best advice I got was from people who didn't even know they were giving me advice. I remember going
Yes.
to see Harry Steele one time, and he said, always make friends with your banker and your accountant and your lawyer, so that when you need them, they know you, and they know what you're doing, and they know what you're about. And I took that to heart. And
Good advice.
there is a cost associated with those relationships too. Like you have to
Yes.
pay for the advice, and you have to but you do cultivate a relationship that is very much worth it. And that was superb advice to a young entrepreneur just starting out. And I figured if Harry Steele says you should do it, then that's probably that's good enough for me. Who am I to second guess that, right? And so there are other times that I've seen somebody who just lit a fire in me. I remember saying a few times, I wish I had a mentor. I wish I had someone who would tell me if this is right or wrong or
Right.
whatever. And you don't always, but this kind of thing, and all the technology that you have now to engage, like Facebook Live and all that
Absolutely.
stuff, it's much easier than even 20 years ago knocking on some guy's door and saying, hey,
Do you have an hour?
by the way, I'm so-and-so, do you have an hour to have a conversation? So, I think it's great, and hopefully what we do is we create more of a culture of trying things and being resilient if it doesn't work, and really celebrating entrepreneurs
And
in
a
the
lot
city.
of great ideas come from a haphazard conversation. Like I find, when
Totally.
talking individual,
Yeah.
had a conversation, it's,
Yeah.
you know, a solution to a problem. I think your point earlier where you said if your focus is not so much on I'm going to go into business so I can be rich and but it's going to be I'm going to go to solve someone's problem or I have a burning desire to do something. I think you're more successful because you're rewarded not only monetarily,
Right.
but also in satisfaction of what you've actually just done.
So
Right.
we, absolutely, so we at Seafair talk about that whole triple bottom line. And it's the notion of, you know, profit, basic business sort of P&L stuff, and then value.
Sorry. I thought I turned.
Life goes on, work goes on.
Again.
It's all
Sorry
good.
about that. Start again, sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. So we talk about the triple bottom line of profit, profitability, and we talk about value for communities that we create, and we, you know, and value
Right.
for society, and we talk about employee happiness. And I try to find a balance of the three of those things, and that this probably sounds like the violin should play, but that puts meaning in my life.
Absolutely.
It absolutely does, you know, and I can't see myself doing anything else. I'm absolutely unhireable is what I say now. so I had to figure this out because you know, that's it, this is my path now, but people can really get behind that. So right now is a tough time in business
Yes.
in some ways, but the people that we have here who believe in that same concept and living by those values and trying to make a living while doing some good, you know what, they will move mountains for you. So that's what I have here, which is pretty special.
And the other thing which I find that sometimes you hear in conversation, and I know it to be so wrong because of my day job,
Yeah.
so I know
Right, of course.
this is, you know, is a fallacy, but that a lot of entrepreneurs in our city support so many charitable organizations, so many worthwhile causes, and it's almost as if in some respects there's a feeling that being successful and profit as an entrepreneur is a bad thing, but I don't think many people realize that with that success provides the opportunity as an entrepreneur to help so many different organizations. And I mean, I know we see each other at some, you know, different charity events, so I know that's
Yeah.
something that you, I think, believe in, because obviously
Absolutely.
I've seen you at some
Yeah.
spirit events, but as an entrepreneur, I guess, as you build your success and are able to give back to the community, is that something that you think is part of a core, you know, value of an entrepreneur, a core value for yourself?
Right, yeah, it is. One of our 5 core values is
Right.
community. And because, you know, when you think about the whole human experience, we all want to make a difference.
Yes.
I think, you know, and the group of entrepreneurs that I know, I don't know who these evil people are who don't do anything that everybody seems to talk about.
Right.
But the people that I know are in business feel incredibly blessed and are incredibly generous with their
Absolutely.
money, with their time, with their corporate resources. You know, our group chooses to do a lot of social good in a lot of ways, and so they volunteer, you know, they do all kinds of things. I donate a significant amount of time and money to community activities, and you know, we try to find ways, so we support a lot of the charitable events, you know, the dinners and those kinds of things. You buy tickets for almost everything, and but you know, the same people who are phoning you to ask you to buy the tickets are also often business owners. You know,
Yes.
they're not only just putting in their money, they're putting in their time.
Absolutely.
They are taking their organizational and leadership skills and keeping the Boys and Girls Club going, or the Healthcare Foundation, or, you know, all of those things. And, you know, I want to live in a great community. I want to live in a province that looks after people and has, you know, charities that look after the environment or make sure that kids get to play sports and all those
Right.
things. And so if you want that, you got to lean in and be part of that. And I think that's a fairly common sentiment among the business community.
Yes.
So there's a lot of givers. I think Newfoundland businesses are very charitable and giving.
I would
So,
totally
yeah,
agree with you
yeah,
there,
yeah.
absolutely. And in terms of the environment in the province, so, you know, the Board of Trade obviously, along with this membership, is heavy advocacy with the
Right.
province to help business succeed. So we need a provincial government that's, you know, working with business to help grow this economy. And the Board of Trade in their economic blueprint now are really looking to put some solid, you know, things to this in terms of the way we move the economy forward. And we fundamentally believe, and we keep saying it as loud as we can, that business is what is going to drive the economy of Newfoundland and Labrador. And in terms of government, because I know obviously in your businesses you would have interaction with government and government authorities, what can government do for business to help business succeed to drive the Newfoundland and Labrador economy?
If you had given me this one in advance, I'd have like the 10 Commandments written out for you now, Dorothy. But so I'll start with my personal pitch that I always say: we need to get rid of the payroll tax, the HAPSET. That's my first thing, because once you're an entrepreneur and you create X many jobs and you have this kind of a payroll, if you start another business, even if it's in an unrelated area, you still got to pay the payroll tax.
Associated company.
And a new person can come in and has costs 2% less than you right off the bat.
Right.
So that's any associated company, you end up paying that tax. So that is a regressive tax. We got to get rid of it. Find another way. But putting it right on payroll is a bad idea. So got that out of my system now. You know,
You're not alone in that one.
yeah, no, that's a bitter pill. It really truly is, I gotta say. When you're trying to create jobs, to think on top of, you know, what you gotta do to start a business, you gotta pay tax on the payroll. So the more people you hire, the more tax you pay. So, you know, the larger sort of economic development conversation is a tough one. You know, there's no question that making decisions that suit both a metropolitan area and very rural communities is really difficult. So I don't think we can take a one-size-fits-all approach to economic development. And I think we probably have been falling victim to that a little bit, of trying to make sure that everything is the same throughout the province. That's not sustainable. And I think there's some understanding that government needs to cultivate with the larger population around that. You can't have the same services and resources in a rural place as you can in a more urban place, and that's a hard conversation to have, but we need to have it.
Right.
We need to talk about that. So, and then, but that doesn't mean you can't create businesses in rural areas.
No, of course not.
I have a deep passion for that, being from, Placentia, which is, it's not really rural, but it's...
And you have a business that's operating out in Placentia.
Absolutely, and we have in Corner Brook and in Grand Falls and a couple of other locations as well. Marystown and, around,
Yes.
So we're around different places. When government starts to try to have that economic development conversation, it's positive, because I have seen a little shift lately. We don't talk about the big mega project. I have said a few times now that entrepreneurs should be the next mega project for Newfoundland and Labrador.
Absolutely.
Because 5,000 jobs created 5 at a time is 1,000 sustainable businesses.
That's right.
And that's the way to think about it. And it doesn't upset the apple cart of, boom bust and all that kind of thing. You create this ecosystem. And we have things to sell here. I mean, we have, just think about, even in the food world, just look what, has happened around that sort of 100-mile diet concept and local food and foraging and all those things here. I mean, there's a booming ecosystem of that happening, which is taking advantage of our natural resources. There are all kinds of things around that we could be doing here in Newfoundland. So it's exciting to see the new movement towards jobs in agriculture and a little more food security and sustainability. And I think you'll get some good jobs that'll come from that, and a lot of entrepreneurial activity will happen there. And we can do the same thing in a number of other ways too. We truly could become a center of excellence for rural care. And I know that from my
Okay,
own
right.
world and how we think about it, because we meet Canadian healthcare standards, which are among the highest in the
Right.
world, and we've got a rural community that's very highly connected with internet. There are so many technological innovations that we could do to do the very best care in place that we actually could teach others. But that would take a bit of a shift in how we think about
How we deliver
what.
those.
Yes, right. So, but there's huge opportunity there, and the
Fantastic.
opportunity for innovation. That I could go on, but I think the message overall is that it can be done. It's not a quick fix. It's not a mega project. And one of the other things that we really need to do is we really need to start having a serious conversation about our education system, because we've got to teach the skills and the knowledge and the attitudes that are necessary for that to happen.
Absolutely.
So, we've got to teach coding, and we've got to teach it to boys and girls.
Yes.
And we've got to teach, how to thrive in that digital age, because that's here.
Yes, whether
that
you like
is-
it or not,
right.
here is where that
Right.
is where we find ourselves for sure.
Absolutely. And you can do that in Tilting and Branch, and you can, Zeta Cobb has proved that you can take all of those beautiful natural resources that we have and combine it with the latest in architecture and digital marketing and all those
Something
things, and
spectacular.
create that. And more than just create the jobs and the business that she's created, there's a sense of pride of place that has been
Absolutely.
restored that I think is a real gift. And I
Totally.
hope we can learn from that sort of sustainable development model elsewhere in the province.
And I think, we have an opportunity here because the province, with Come From Away,
Yeah.
we're on a global stage now like never before in terms of, so we are, I find our province is so rich and so lucky. And everybody else is envious of it. I mean, we have the oil, we have the natural resources that are in Labrador with the iron ore, we have gold, we have the people of the province,
We do.
which are a phenomenal resource that has a culture and a sort of an atmosphere and a positivity that many places in the world wish that they could have had.
Right.
That.
For
And we
sure.
have Come
We
From
do.
Away, which is highlighting the actual resource of the talent of the people of the province in terms of the generosity, kindness, and a place someone would want to be
Absolutely.
and visit. So to your point earlier, tourism being,
Yeah.
being able to capitalize on that. So I think we have a ton of
And not
riches
just
here,
tourism
right?
too, Dorothy. I would say the other thing is that there are business owners and innovators, and I actually met the guy, I can't think of his name now, who started Twitter. And after he sold it all and made all this bajillion dollars,
Yes,
whatever
yeah.
that was, he he went back to a 2-room house in the woods in Oregon because he felt that he was more creative in a space like that. And there's things about Newfoundland that could really attract that sort of off-the-grid kind of thinking, and that new sort of sustainable, you can work from anywhere model. And we should talk about that a little bit more.
I think
what
so,
that
too.
is kind of far out, but
It's global.
Absolutely.
So now, as long as you have good internet and connectivity,
Yeah.
you really can do pretty much anything anywhere in the world. And this is a phenomenal place to perch. And you're going to do it.
it is so. Long as you can get out after 9 months of 2 degrees.
a little bit of sunshine.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think that
yeah.
would do it.
But I agree. I'm excited about Newfoundland, and just think about the thought process that went through the heads of Barry Perry and Carl Smith and those guys down at Fortis, and Stan Marshall and
Yes.
Angus Bruno, who was the mastermind behind all of that. To get from amalgamating the little dam that was here and the Petty Harbor Dam and all that stuff to ring the bell on the New York Stock Exchange and be one of those largest utility distributors in North America, that is creative thinking. That is
Absolutely.
business skills that rival anybody on Wall Street or Bay Street or anyone
Totally
else. And
agree.
it's on Water Street right here.
Right.
So we got to get over ourselves and something. Boy, you can't do that here. You can so. You can so. You just got to lean into it and also not be swayed by the flavor of the day or whatever, just be, drive that business forward, and you can.
Have a plan
Right.
and,
And you gotta
And
get
be
out of your own
responsible.
way too, you cannot be isolation, I mean, you can be here in Newfoundland, but you can't be isolationist about it,
No.
like you could not do that deal from Newfoundland if you didn't spend a lot of time on a plane and,
Absolutely.
raising capital and building relationships with the company that they eventually bought, and so it is a global business world.
Right.
And, but you can do it from here as well as anywhere.
so there is still, I mean,
Yeah.
we at the board firmly believe there's tons of opportunity in Newfoundland and Labrador, and that it's much healthier discussions to be talking about the opportunity and looking at the positive. We are very grounded in the reality of where
Oh,
we
yeah.
find ourselves. You only need to go to our website
Yeah.
and see our debt clock to know that we very much are grounded in that reality. But I think the conversation has to be one of opportunity, so that individuals' mindset and thinking are around possibilities and not
Absolutely.
around, we're in a hard spot, can't get out of it. feeling,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah. And you have to learn to hear when opportunity knocks too.
Yes.
That's the other thing, because it often occurs when, things are not going well.
Right.
Right. And it's that yin yang of, in crisis there's opportunity, and I believe that, and so we should be all looking for them right now.
Totally agree. Thank you for your